Hey, welcome to the Hive with Us podcast. I'm your host, Daniel Martinez. Today we have special guest, Mr. Ed Parcaut. We're going to jump a little bit into his background, what he does, a bit about what he's into, and what he's doing today. Ed, where part of the country are you from today? Oh, we're speaking from today.
I'm in actually Northern California.
Northern California. I live in Southern California.
Where do you live?
I live between LA and San Diego.
Dude, I was down there for 20 years. I was in the Navy. So where?
By Temecula.
Okay.
Now somebody calls me. Crazy.
How it always works. Just put on Do Not Disturb and they still will call.
I know.
That's what I like about Apple. You turn off the computer, but that's not what I'm using in the studio. It's in my other studio. So, yeah.
So you originally in the military. What branch of the military were you in?
Yeah, I was in the Navy.
Navy. Okay, that's awesome. And how long were you in the Navy?
5 years, 5 months, and 14 days. But who was counting?
I think you were.
When I was done, I was done. So I joined the Navy because you kind of want my background. I joined the Navy to get out of Northern California. I ended up in Turlock in high school, and I wanted to get out of the valley because there was nothing going on. So I thought I'd join the Navy, see the world. I got to see San Diego, and I was stationed down there my whole time at Camp Pendleton, which is outside of Oceanside. And then I went to Texas for a specialty school, and then back to Camp Pendleton. So pretty much my whole existence was at Camp Pendleton at the hospital there, which was good for me because I was a Navy guy on a Marine Corps base. And so I tell people it's like MASH, and exactly how it was. People don't really know your rank. They don't know anything. They don't mess with you. When you're on a Navy base, it's a totally different world. And while I was in, I got my bachelor's, and then I finished my master's while I was in, and then got out and decided I want to get into the business world. And I've been owning different things, and now I own a mortgage company I've been in the mortgage industry, I should say, for the past 20 some years, 25, 26 years. I really enjoy helping people get into homes and building personal wealth through home ownership.
That's awesome, man.
Yeah.
I kind of want to jump into your military career. So you always see like a bunch of movies like that where because I know my brother's in the Marines. So I actually went to Camp Pendleton when he graduated from the Marine Corps. When you definitely mix it up, that's a cool dynamic. That's interesting. Did you join when you were younger, or like?
Yeah, I joined in high school. I was in a delayed entry program. So that was in high school. I knew I wanted to get out of here, so I signed up and wanted to be a corpsman, a medic, and then just figure out from there. And everybody was telling me I'll be a blue collar worker my whole life. Not that there's anything wrong with that, because the blue collar worker these days make a lot of money in the right place. But I was told I'd do nothing with my life. Well, the problem is, when I was a kid, my dad had hairy cell leukemia, which was from Agent Orange from being in Vietnam, and he got it. And so he passed away when I was 12. So I grew up without a father, and we went from, middle upper class to dirt road poor. And so it totally changes your dynamic when you end up doing that. And so I started working really young, worked on my grandfather's dairy, get, different jobs, because my mom couldn't give me any money. We were on Social Security. Yeah. So totally different world.
Yeah. I think the military, I think it's good for certain people, that it helps them get like direction in life, because a lot of people might not know what they're going to do and how they're going to do it. And I think you're kind of like put down, like, oh, you're going to be some blue collar worker or whatever, trying to put you down, but it forces you to pick something, and it forces you to adapt and grow in that field. And I think it makes you like a functioning adult when you're not necessarily.
You grow up much faster in the military.
Yeah, there you go. That's what
you either grow up much faster or you get kicked out.
This show is sponsored by HiveMind CRM. It is more than just a CRM. It is a real estate and business mastermind that comes with an all-in-one CRM. You can have unlimited websites and users. You can call, text, RVM, and email all in one user interface. And you can set up custom automations for any type and multiple businesses. 65% of companies start using a CRM system within the first 5 years of business. Once implemented, the HiveMind will save you on marketing, give you more time, and make more money. One of our users had his first $100,000 month using our system in June. We want to see you automate and accelerate your business. Text us at 210-972-1842 for future meetings, and of course to get our $1 course on how to make more than 6 figures on one land deal. You can schedule your free demo today at hivemindcrm.io.
And then you don't really amount to much technically, but most people grow up. You're forced to grow up, and you become, you're able to handle things that your counterpart in the civilian world would not be able to handle. 100%. And I don't mean like psychology stuff. I'm just talking, I did stuff as a physical therapist. I mean, as an assistant, and I would do it like only physical therapists would do in the civilian world. We would do in the military world for our patients, because you can't get sued. right? There's the difference. So
Mm,
we did stuff that if I went out to then do that same job out in town, I couldn't do what I did
yeah.
because of all the requirements.
That's crazy. Corbin, were you stationed at Camp Pendleton your whole time when you were
Yeah,
there?
at the hospital. Yeah, at the older hospital that's not the one up front and that you see from the road. I was at the one that was in the middle of the base.
Awesome. Yeah, I appreciate you serving in the military.
Thank you.
Even though it's been many years ago, I appreciate the service, and I know people like you. It takes a lot of. You don't necessarily get a lot of things. You don't get a lot of like love from outside of the military, but I appreciate everybody that serves. So just want to start off with that.
It's a totally different world now. When I got out, nobody cared.
Yeah,
Now, after 9/11, people care again because of what we've done and how we come back. And my son's he's an airborne medic in the Army. And he's like, Dad, every time I walk through the airport, it's like 100, thank you for your service. He goes, I go, you should enjoy that because when I used to walk through I get nothing. So now people care and they're back to caring. It's important to help our vets. We lose 22 a day from suicide. And so it's really important to reach out to them and help them out.
100%, 100%. So your son's a medic as well. That's
Yeah.
crazy.
Yeah,
How old is
my wife's a nurse at Kaiser. My daughter's a nurse and director of a place. My other daughter is still trying to figure out what she's going to do.
How many kids do you have?
5 total.
5 total kids. Amazing.
Yeah.
Amazing. No, I think it's really medical field. It's really cool how all your kids and family all went through the same thing. That's awesome.
Well, I don't want them in my industry.
You don't want them in the mortgage industry.
No. Mortgage it's so that if you look at, and this is not a negative thing, this is
Yeah,
just as a career, you can get into it, but keep it as, be a nurse or something first and then do this on the side or whatever. I mean, the issue is if you look back at or I'll just say in the last 30 years, there was probably a good 15 to 18 years out of there. The rest of it, there was issues or problems or the market was down or this was going on. Because you got to look at 2008, the financial crisis
yeah,
that took a good, at least 8 years to
yep,
come out of that.
yep.
And now we're in a situation because we didn't build homes back there and we had to absorb all those homes that we overbuilt. Now we don't have enough homes at all. In California, we're 2.5 million homes short that we have to build to get caught up. And it's going to take 15, 20 years to do that.
Mm,
So
that's great.
this real estate market is just crazy.
That's crazy.
People think, okay, well, the rates are so high, we're going to have a bubble. There's no bubble. There's no
No,
inventory. You can't have a bubble without inventory.
yeah, yeah. So the volatility of the mortgage industry is not a plus.
No, I mean, and things will change over time, but I mean, no other time in history, if you look back just right now, right? In the last year, really in 6 months of that year, we went up 5% in interest rates. Never in history done that like that
Yeah,
in a 6-month period. And that was all self-inflicted by our government. And I'm not trying to get conspiracy theory and all this stuff. When you shut off pipelines and you increase inflation, that's what's going to happen. And then you got if you're on a budget at home with your wife or whatever, if you're both working the budget, then everything works. But if one doesn't, if one's like, okay, we got to control our spending so we can get this done over here, but I want all these programs, I want to buy all this stuff. And that's what's the problem with our government. The one side is just spending because they know if they spend it, they won't be able to spend it later if the administration changes. So they're just spending now. And the Fed's going, well, we need to control inflation. So I'm doing this tightening, but you keep spending and it doesn't work. And that's why we are where we are.
yeah. I think the government is very conflicted on what they do, and then it hurts everybody, but it hurts the lower middle class the worst. But it
Right
hurts
now, people who
everybody.
used to be on the food stamp program, it's called something else now, SNAP or something.
Yeah,
I saw a statistic: 45% of them are going without one meal a day, and then 55% of them so they're hurting like you would not believe, the low income, and it's all because of the different programs that were put in place and the different things that was done, especially what they call the Income Reduction Act, not the Inflation Reduction Act, but the Income Reduction Act, and that's basically what's happening. It's middle class to lower middle class are being affected.
yeah. It's insane. It's insane to me. I don't think it's getting better. It's not getting better. It's only getting worse because I think the rich people that like they're holding assets, so their inflationary risk is kind of grows with the market. But man, everybody else, if you're not holding assets, you're gonna get torched real quick.
Well, if you own a home, you're fine because your payment's not moving up. You're renting, your payments are going up. Like, especially in California, since they passed that stupid, rent, technically a rent control to a certain point where they can only go up 10% max, 8 to 10%. Well, they
Yep.
have to do that now. Every landlord has to raise your lease every year 8 to 10% to stay in compliance. So instead of helping renters, they actually hurt the renters. And that's what happens when government gets involved. And this is not getting on a soapbox about political stuff, but
Yeah.
the government says, we want to help. This is what we're going to do to help you. But they don't look at the unintentional consequences from what they're doing. And that's the same thing with all the programs they came out with once, 2008, because of that financial crisis, they changed the whole mortgage system to a certain point of how we disclose. But that wasn't the problem. The problem was the bond rating agencies rated things as AAA that should have been rated Ds.
Yep.
And if you watch the movie The Big Short, you see all that. That's who should have went to jail. That's who should have went after, not went after all the mortgage brokers who didn't do anything, or the banks and all that stuff, who they're not the ones who caused the problem. It was those bond rating agencies. But you never saw any of those guys in handcuffs going to jail.
No, I think when I watched The Big Short, it seemed like everybody played the game. Everybody played the game, and they might have not known it was happening 100%, but everybody was just playing their role because it's such a big industry that not anybody controls besides the government as a whole. Well, once they start implementing laws and rules, it affects like the equal and opposite reaction. You change one thing, there's going to be an opposite reaction somewhere else.
Right. I mean, there's just so many things. I mean, it's just like when they had qualified mortgage put in fact that certain things have to pass certain things. If you have a smaller loan amount, it doesn't pass those things. And then they got to a point where small credit unions across the countries couldn't do, they couldn't do the loans that most people need in certain places because they're too small and they won't pass QM and those little things. And so they had to come back and say, okay, well, this loan amount, this size can do, it just, the stuff they just don't. What they should do is get people from the industry who've worked in the industry forever and say, okay, what should we do to make changes to make this better? And if they would ask me, I would say do nothing, because they'll never do those loans again. They lost too much money. That's the problem. We don't do stuff in our industry where we lose money. We don't go back and do it again.
Okay. So us in the capitalist society, we learn from our mistakes. So the best thing to do is just let it roll, let it play out.
Mm-hmm. They cost too much money, and people. But out of that whole thing, how many people got homes? How many people got were bought at the right time, and now they have a lot of equity? There was a lot of people who had opportunities, and other people who bought hundreds of rentals and thousands of rentals, and still have them to this day. So, as negative as things are, there was a positive side for a lot of other people. Just like right now, there's a huge opportunity to get into a home right now, but most people go, "Well, the rate's too high. I want to wait till the rate gets lower."
So I watched a video about this yesterday, and everybody's like, "Oh, the rates get lower. It's just going to create a feeding frenzy because now everybody's can afford to qualify a loan, so it's going to make the prices go up."
Mm-hmm. Well, here's what this is. So, prime example: there was an open house the other day, Friday, Saturday. 22 couples went through. They talked to them. They all go, "We're going to wait until rates get better." Well, so that means there'll be 22 people for that one house when rates get better, or one of them could go, yes, I know rates aren't perfect right now, but I know I can refinance multiple times over the next 3 to 5 years and get this payment way much lower, but I'll never be able to get this price back down to the price point it is today. Even Dave Ramsey, for the first time in history, is saying buy houses now. Don't care about the rate. As long as you got all the money, you have, your reserves for it, and you don't have a ton of credit card debt. He's like, go buy that house because you're never going to see these prices again.
It's I think it's I'm only 31, so I've only experienced. I bought my first house when I was 25, so I've been in real estate for about six years now. So like when I was in my younger 20s and even before I was 18, I mean, I didn't know nothing about business or real estate or anything like this. But it's one of those things where like there's always a joke like, oh, I wish I was bought real estate when I was 10 because the prices were amazing. But it's one of those things where like you don't know what you don't know. And a lot of people that are as an adult want to buy a home. They don't understand this process of real estate and how it ebbs and flows in the marketplace and what's going to happen if rates go down. Like they don't understand this. I think definitely providing information out there, like, hey, if the rates go down, instead of 20 people fighting for the house, there might be 40.
Well, I explain it like this. You ever seen the Tour de France?
Yes.
You see what you have, that one cyclist guy who's out in front and he's kicking ass, and then you have then you have about 4 people behind him trying to catch him, and then
Yep.
you have that peloton of hundreds and hundreds of riders. That's the difference. That guy out in front is today's rates. The 4 behind them is a point lower in interest rates, and that group of riders that's way back there, 100 of them, that's when interest rates get 2 points lower. That's how many people are going to be coming out of the woodwork, and that's a problem. What people don't realize today, you have to make over $100,000. It's different in Southern California, but in general, if you just look across nation, what we were able to do at 75,000 before when rates were super low, you're now at 125%. We were able to do a $700,000 house had a $2,500 a month payment, where now that's a $445,000 house.
Yeah, and that payment's probably
$2,500.
Yeah.
That's what I'm saying. For the same payment, that's the difference. $300,000 difference in the price of a home. And that's why a lot of people can't afford now. And are we going to see the low rates we had back in 2020, 2021? No. So we figure that we're going to get to 5, maybe 5.5 over the next year and a half. And that's where we're going to be for a while. That's normal rates. Those other ones, we thought we were going to die. And that's why the rates went as low as they did. That was the whole thing. We're in a recession. They shut down the country. No time in history did they shut down the country.
Yeah.
So the only way to get back there is to shut down the country again. I'm not saying they're going to not come up with it. You give them a chance one time to do something, they might come back and do it again.
Yeah, COVID was a weird time, and it's weird looking back at it, and it seems so fresh, but it was weird. It was weird. Definitely being in real estate at that time, because I remember I moved to California right at 2020 when it first started, and I moved to Southern California. Like, there was no traffic, like nobody was on the roads, and I'm like, this is nice, this is crazy. Like, I couldn't eat at restaurants because some restaurants were closed or short staffed. So it's an interesting dynamic that happens when the country shut down, and it was definitely interesting to see. I hope they don't do it again. I mean, I think it was really, really bad to the economy.
And it was bad for everything. It was bad.
We're dealing with the ramifications probably for the next 10 years. Forever.
Forever, because of the whole, people, it's a control thing and potentially. But I mean, back to the whole thing you were talking about, people just don't know about real estate and how to do it. That's why I wrote my book, and I'm not trying to plug my book, but it's Financial Freedom, Building Personal Wealth Through Home Ownership. The reason I wrote that book is there's only one of me. I can't get to as many clients as I want to get to. And so I wrote the book, and it's based off of the first chapter's credit. I look at the way that I would qualify somebody. First thing you need to have is credit, right? If your credit's not good, you need to go work on and get it fixed. Then we look at income, and then we look at the assets, and we go forward, because you can always get a better job. You can always get someone to help you out with money or something. But the first part, you got to get down. And so I just go through there and I breaks down everything about getting a home loan the way I do it. And I've been doing the same way over and over again. When I had a business partner, we were in Carlsbad. We shared the same office as the owners, because our employees could just tell us one time instead of, hold on, let's go over to so-and-so's office and tell us again. And he's like, dude, you pick up the phone and you say the same thing over and over and over. I go, yeah, that's how I make sure I hit every point I want to hit that has come up along the way, so that I don't have to worry about it.
And that comes with experience, 100%. Like, when you're experienced and doing something for this long time, you come up with your own internal script that you've answered every question, and you're gonna hit everything. And when they have a question, it's already answered, because you already have hit it in your flow. So 100%, I think it's important to provide education to the people. And I'm really glad you wrote a book. That's dope.
Yeah, and it's on Amazon, and it became a bestseller for right away in 2 categories: home buying and then also mortgage. Easiest way to get my book is just go to getedsbook.com. It takes you right to my website. You click on the link, it'll take you over to Amazon. Because just like you, everybody goes, Parcaut. How do you spell that?
edparcaut.com.
Yeah. Well, I'm Ed Parcaut everywhere: Instagram, TikTok, everywhere.
So let's talk about providing information to the people, because I think the people need to hear it. So you have your own podcast. What's your podcast called?
All right. Well, let me back up a little bit. So I've been on radio. So 5 years ago, August of 2018, somebody came to me and said, hey, you want to do a local radio show on real estate and finance? And my first question was, do people listen to radio? because I didn't, right? I listened
Oh,
satellite and I streamed it. But people do here locally. Talk radio is huge on AM. And so that show's been going crazy for the past 5 years. I get 50% of my business from it. And then we
amazing.
turned it into a podcast on Monday, and that radio show is called Real Estate Jerky. We give you something to chew on, and you can find it on Spotify. You can find it everywhere because we turned it into a podcast. And then from that radio show, I do 9 lives a week, and 5 of them is our daily in the morning with my co-host, and we talk about the same stuff every morning. What's going on in the market, what's this, what I see with inflation, all that kind of stuff. And that's a daily. And that one's we just started uploading that as a podcast. We've been doing that for a year, but it was one of those things is you just get going and you figure out what you're going to do later. So
No, and you said start creating content, and you'll figure out a way to position it later. So you get 50% of your business from the radio show.
yeah.
I didn't know you listened to the radio.
Well, talk radio, do AM talk radio. It's totally different than FM. I'm not talking FM. It's talk radio. People 1360 up here, 1280 up here for out of Stockton and stuff. Yeah. I have 51 to 71,000 listeners on that.
Wow, amazing. Congratulations.
Thanks. And then so I do that. Then I also do another podcast called Helping the Brave, which is for us veterans. Once we take the uniform off, we talk about transition story, we talk about PTSD and all that stuff. And we do that one on Wednesdays. That's also live, but then we put it up to a podcast afterwards. So
the whole radio thing still messing with my head because I haven't listened to the AM radio in years because I remember growing up, we had tape players, we were still popping in tape players back then.
Well, that's why I took it from radio and put it on as a podcast.
Yeah.
So I could hit more people, and it did pretty well. And then now I'm just as the technology has changed,
Yep.
and with the new stuff that I can do, I can cut up my shows. I can do certain things in 15 minutes that would normally take somebody else 3 to 4 hours for every episode we do because of the different types of technology that's come out, AI that's come out. It's in the last 30 days that's changed, because I also do another podcast called Inner Edison, which is your greatest accomplishments come from your greatest defeats, which is all about failure and what you learn from it. And I talk to entrepreneurs and about their failures and what they learn from it and move on. And that's been doing pretty well. And I've been doing that for a little over 2 years. I took a break for about 5 months because I lost my focus, meaning that I couldn't get people to talk about their failures. They wanted to talk about all the other stuff. And so now I tell them, you can't come on unless you talk about this. And if you come on and you just skate around it, it won't air.
There you go. I think 100% being upfront with the topic and your underlying motivation of even the podcast itself, because a lot of people, I think failure is what molds you into it molds your future and what you potentially could be. And a lot of people are I don't know, I'm not afraid of my failures. It's one of those things that it helped produce me and put me to the place I am right now. So
well, and it doesn't have to be a huge failure for each person's failure is what's for them, right? What define it for you. So I mean, I had one guy who had an offer for his company for 50 million, and then 2 weeks later 7 of his top people quit and left and stole all his stuff, and he lost 30 million. So there's a low. Yeah. And so I mean, there's been other stories, like I had Brian Smith on from UGG, and he talked about his story, how he lost his company during his 15 years of building that and had to get it back. And I've had a lot of people on talk about those issues, but then, it just depends. That's what I want to focus on that show. Then I also created a new one, which is called ACES 53, which is when I was in college down there, my instructor said, remember 4 aces and a joker. So it's a sales podcast, and an ACES stand for what you bring to the table. So acronym: attitude, commitment, enthusiasm, smile. That's what you bring to the table when you're in sales, right? With what we do. I'm a mortgage person, but I'm still a salesperson. You're a real estate person, you're still a salesperson.
Yep.
That joker is that unique ability that you have that nobody else has, or something you've learned. For me, when I sold by the phone, it was my voice. I had no idea I had a deep voice until I had headphones put on. Right. And so that was mine at the time. Now it's, and that it works now for what I do. So that ACES 53, that's a live Tuesdays and Thursdays at 10 a.m. Pacific here, in our area. And then it's with a friend of mine, Brian Galke, who is Subtle Skills. And he can tell you everything about you by your features on your face. And you'll be shocked with what he can tell you.
Yeah. I think everybody has unique ability, and I think once you find it and hone into it,
Mhm.
monetize it.
Yeah, whatever it is.
Whatever.
But I like that show because I want to get back in sales. So I run into a lot of agents younger ones, your age, who don't know how to sell, don't know the basics, have not listened to Zig Ziglar, have not listened to the old. You need to go back to the old, and then you'll find out. If you go to the old, and you'll find out all the people today who are saying, "Hey, this is what you do." It's what the old people said.
Well, I mean, it's the same thing with music.
Yeah, exactly.
Every sampling the old music.
Yeah, it's the same thing. Yeah, but I mean, but most people think, and this is not Nick, on Grant Cardone or all the other ones. They all have this, learned it from somebody else, and then they keep teaching it. Alex Hormozy had a thing a couple weekends ago, and
Yep.
he had a huge thing in his book, and I listened to all his stuff, and it's like, okay, he did a Phil Felt Found on air, and he's like, oh, I go, dude, you're doing a Phil Felt Found. He goes, I'm sorry, I did a Phil Felt Found. That's a closed kind of thing. I know how you feel. I felt the same way. This is what I found out. And, so it's the old stuff, and some of that stuff we don't use these days because people know about it. People know and don't want to be sold that way.
I think it's funny because like good salesmen, they can recognize sales techniques when they're being sold to. The best salesmen are the best when you don't understand you're being sold.
Right.
And it's crazy because they might use like a variation of different sales techniques combined to sell you, but you don't feel like you're being sold.
Well, the best sales technique is education, is educating the client.
Yeah.
Educate them why they should buy, and not have what we call commission breath, which is you got to have that sell. Yeah, man, that's selling so long. You got to get that one closed. I don't care where you are in life. I don't care if you just started in real estate, started in a mortgage, whatever it is. You got to act like you've been here forever.
Mm-hmm.
And when someone asks you how long you've been in the business, you say it seems like forever. That's
there you go. That's such a good one because we tell our students all the time is like don't be a desperate buyer or a desperate seller. Don't be desperate at all. Like they can smell the desperation on you. Like if you need that sale to make lunch, don't make it seem like it.
right. Well, and that's what a lot of people get into this, and people ask how long you've been doing this, and they go 3 weeks. Right? They're afraid. It's like just do the statement I said. They won't go any further and ask any more than that. You answered their question.
Yeah.
Let them figure it out in their head what that number is.
Yeah, you open-ended answers. So let them. Yeah.
But what's helped me recently, once my book came out, so you probably, I don't know if you saw my stuff, but last November I came out in a documentary called Hacking Real Estate, and I talked about there was no bubble, all that kind of stuff, and because they didn't have a mortgage person in this, so I met them at Traffic Conversion in San Diego, and they're like, we want you in our documentary. Sure. And so I talked to, and I was the only mortgage guy in there, and everybody else was how they figured out how to do real estate, and what they did. They're a little hack in it. I didn't like the hacking part of it because they had a different name before, which I liked, and then all of a sudden everything's a hack now, so it had to have that name. But it was actually pretty good. I've had some calls from Palmdale, from other places that would never even know about me because of that documentary.
Man, it seems like you've really like found your niche, and you've been in it for a long time, and it might not even be mortgage lending anymore.
I just like talking to people, but the big thing that I like so if you're whatever we're in, right, mortgage or real estate, you gotta be the authority in the industry.
Yep.
How do you become the authority in the industry? Do podcasts, do lives, do radio shows, write a book, get put in a documentary. But you got to be really careful though, because you could get too much, and then people think you're too big, and they won't work with you.
Ooh. So how do you confront that? Like how do you avoid staying too big?
There's just well, it's funny because some people are a celebrity to somebody, right? That's just how life is.
Yep.
And it doesn't matter. Like when I tell people, like on the radio, I'll call, if you call me, and I'll call you, and I call them, and they go, I didn't really think you were going to call me, but I told you I was going to call you. Right. And I'm old school. I'm about phone, email, no, texting, no, unless it's in, like, I do a lot of stuff up in Tuolumne County, which is like Fallbrook to you guys down there. You're in Temecula. Fallbrook's up like in the foothills and stuff, and the signal doesn't work real well, or outdoors, alpine kind of stuff. Same thing. They got a text because they don't have good cell coverage. And so that's different. But in general, people, whatever your text is in the state of mind they are in, right? Because they can't hear your voice. I want to talk to you because I want to hear the tones and inflections in your voice to see if you're hearing what I'm saying or if there's an issue. I can tell you in a second if somebody's got an issue.
So having the physical conversation with people, I think that's 100% sales strategy right there.
You have to.
Yeah.
It's about FaceTime with the client these days, period.
I like my whole theory on this is like communicating the way people want to be communicated to. So me personally, I like texting and emailing because I like communicating on my time, but I'll call when I need to. And there's always that one. I always have scheduled calls. So it's one of those things where like you can have that one-on-one interaction, but communicating, they want to be communicating to. So like the younger people that I'm sure like being texted to.
They do, but also they don't want voicemail, right? But they want a phone call. Yeah, but they want a phone call.
They definitely want a phone call.
Yeah, and I tell, so I work with all ages. I don't care, and I tell them, I'm going to leave a message. I don't care if you listen to it or not, but you know that I left you a message and it wasn't a freaking butt dial. The biggest problem these days is people will call and not leave a message or text saying, "Hey, call me" or whatever, and you don't know if they really called you or if it was an accidental drop the phone and called you. Because I have kids, dude. My kids are young. And I always tell them, leave a freaking message. I'm not going to call you back unless you leave a message because I don't know if you just made a mistake and called me accidentally. But I do text people at little things. But if it's something that I need to make sure they really understand, I'm not going to text it. It's just too much.
100%. You're not going to clarify it.
If it's more than 2 lines, it's not going to be text.
100%. Hey, when's the best time to speak with you? Because I need to get this message directly to you where you understand and I don't have to repeat myself.
Right. Yeah. Because I mean, I do a lot. I probably meet 1 out of 100 of my clients. Just because I'm in the mortgage side. I don't have to have, nobody wants to, I tell them, I don't need you to come in the office and waste time away from your family and other things. You don't need to do that. Here's my app. Boom, fill it out. Tell me I can run your credit. We'll do a soft pull. Tell you go to optoutprescreen.com and get opted out, and until you go to donotcall.gov and opt out of those 2 things. I don't want your credit run unless it's a soft pull.
Yeah.
Because you get 92 phone calls these days when someone runs your credit.
Woo.
Trigger leads. There's a thing going through Congress right now. Reach out to your administration, the people that are in the federal side, let them know you want that trigger lead thing passed so that they can't sell those trigger leads anymore.
Leads, the lead business is insane, literally insane. Like that's the biggest reason with me personally is like I get like 10 to 15 phone calls every day and I don't know who's calling, so I just don't answer none of them. If I get if your number isn't saved, I just don't answer it.
Well, I pick it up, and then if I don't hear anybody right away, you can hear a little click. Yeah, I'm like, I'm done. Click.
It's a dial.
If you can tell if it's a person or if it's something being transferred. And I'm not talking the old school transfer. They're pretty good these days, but there is a delay. And if there isn't somebody right then and there, as soon as you say hello, it's going to be transferred. So move on. Hang up.
That's crazy. What's your book called?
Financial Freedom: Building Personal Wealth Through Home Ownership.
Okay. Awesome.
Let me know afterwards. I'll send you a copy.
When did you release it? I'll definitely take a copy. February this year.
Yeah. So I sent it all to my clients that I deal with.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm going to tell you right now, I don't care who you are. You're not going to get my clients. I've had clients now, don't care how much the builder is willing to give them. We'll say I'm using it.
Yeah.
Because I'm educating them on the whole process. How would you like a client that comes to you that has no questions because they read my book and they know everything about credit, income, assets. They understand the CD, the loan estimate. They understand the contract and the closing costs and all that stuff that comes up and bites us all in the butt because somebody doesn't explain it to them. You mean your loan officer didn't tell you about closing costs? What's closing costs?
Yeah.
What's prepaid items? We all have, we're in a hurry and we have to deal with, when I'm done with this, I got 6 clients I got to get to and qualify. And that's how, all of a sudden it's like the gates are open again. People are realizing now is the time to buy. And what I'm getting at is we're so busy, I could forget to say something to one of them because I'm going through so many. But if I send them my book and they read it, I don't have a problem. The other thing is when I send out certain disclosures, I said, remember, did you read my book? No. I go it's the same thing. I sent it to my son. I said, read this book. My daughter-in-law read it, but he didn't. I'm like, it'll explain this. And one guy was like, well, what's a loan estimate? I go, read chapter 4. It talks about it, explains it. It shows pictures of it. So you'll know what it is when it comes to you, because you're going to get them so many times now because of 2008. Everybody said, I didn't know it was adjustable. Well, you signed a rider 3 times. I did.
Mm-hmm.
Now you sign loan estimates every time anything happens on the file. Right. So you could be signing a loan estimate 7 times, depending on how many times things change on the file. So you can't say I never saw it. CD, you probably 3 of them.
That's amazing. One thing I like about having something like that, it's like a manual. It prevents you from messing up, and it gives them the information. And I'm sure it saves you a ton of time of reiterating the same conversation you have with every client for the past 20 years, and it's all right there.
Yeah, but I'm good with telling them again. But at least they have the book to go back to. Yeah, you normally got to hear it 3 times to really understand it. So they'll read it once, hear it again from me, and then I'll bring it up again.
There's a manual, and everything explains it a little further.
Yeah. The only issue in my book is when I wrote it came out in, I was writing it in 2021 or whatever. Yeah. I said at least rates aren't above 7% yet.
Oh man, you stuck your foot in your mouth.
No, they're not going to be here forever. I'm just saying, that I said rates are going to continue, will go up, but no one knew they were going to do this.
Yeah.
I mean, and I'm not going to fix it, but I also have a VA version coming out because I'm a vet. So I have a veterans edition that's just coming out for veterans.
Amazing. What is a quote that is yours or somebody else's that you resonate with?
Well, my favorite quote is from Zig Ziglar. It says, treat your significant other like a racehorse and never have a nag.
Never heard that one before. That's good.
It's an excellent one. Yeah, he actually says wife or whatever, but in these days, that's why he said significant other. So,
I mean, you can modernize it just like everybody else.
Yeah, well, I mean, and it just means treat the person that you love amazing, and they'll always, treat you back the same way. So,
yeah.
I mean, there's so many quotes because I love Zig Ziglar and all the different things.
But another one. I know you got another one. You got one in your back pocket.
No, that one's the best one right now.
Okay.
Yeah,
I'll leave it at that. Okay. Amazing. Thanks for coming on. One more time, where can people find you? Where can people find your podcast? And where can people find your book?
All right, you can just go to edparcaut.com, and it has all my podcasts on there. You can find me, Ed Parcaut, everywhere. That's on social media. I'm everywhere under Ed Parcaut. My book, you can get it at getedsbook.com. That's getedsbook.com. That takes you right to my website page with my book. You click on it, it'll take you over to Amazon. You can purchase it over there on Amazon.
Boom. Thanks for coming on. I really appreciate you giving up your time, and I appreciate you providing education to the masses, because it's very, very important. Not a lot of people do it, and you as a creator contribute to the American people, and I really appreciate that. So I say thank you to you, and hopefully our listeners go check out his book and go check out his podcast, and hopefully somebody here learns and doesn't fall into another trap out there that is set out there that based off of not knowing.
Yeah, I mean, it's important to have education and understand the process. You need to understand it, because once you understand it, it's easy.
There you go. We'll see you next time. Stay tuned. Go like, share, subscribe. We'll see you next time. Thanks, guys.
Thanks for watching this YouTube video. We hope you found value. Please like, subscribe, and hit the bell. Watch more videos just like this one.